radio, so that you can have access and understand what I'm talking about. We call those transmitters. Transceivers transceivers, not transmitters. Transceivers means they receive and send. So we have 2 meter, which are good for local and an immediate region around you. Then we have long distance communications. That means that I can talk from one side of the country to the other. I can talk from the United States to Canada, from the United States to Europe, Africa, Asia, and so forth. And those shortwave frequencies and those shortwave radios, costly. So you wouldn't want to necessarily spend, you can get them for $1,500 that are 100 watts. But to really hear well, you have to put something on it that amplifies the sound, and that gets to be expensive. And you can consider, in U.S. dollars, about a little over $1 for every watt you want. So if you want 1,000 watts, it's going to cost you $1,000. There are legal limits to ham radios, and they usually require you to have a license to use just to talk on. But there is a time when it's legal to use, when it's not needing to have a license, and that is this: whenever life, limb, and property are in jeopardy. So it can mean during a storm, when people are having damage and you want to help, be on a radio and coordinate, you don't have to have a license. If somebody's life's threatened, or their welfare is at stake, or somebody's property is in jeopardy, those don't need license to use the radio. Okay, and you will get a lot of help a lot of times on these, but you need to learn how to use them. So I'm suggesting that people also get at least a listening radio, shortwave radio, to listen to broadcasts on. You can listen to nationwide, worldwide, United States civilian militia broadcasts on Saturday night down around 3.50 on a shortwave radio. Now, one of them I like, and I happen to like, is Sangean 909. That's the name of it. Another good brand is Grundig. What I suggest that you stay away from is the ones that are made in China recently that we have gotten, and I've gotten. The program to dial it over time begins to change, as if there's some routine built into the program that causes the dialing, not the mechanical, but the program begins to you dial one way and it goes backwards. You dial back, it goes the other way. And it progressively gets worse and worse as time goes on, as if it's timed to be broken in the software. That the software package that makes it run is deliberately programmed to not work as time goes on. That's been written about in popular CQ magazine, Popular Communications, and it's been named Degen 1105. And so if you see anything that's DEGEN 1100, 1105, don't get it. Just get you a Grundig, get you a Sangean, and you'll do fine. Okay? Great. All right. So I want us to know that we have options for communications. Do you know who's real busy right now? Ham radio guys are helping with communications from the United States and other parts of the world with the Haitian problem, with the Haiti earthquake. And by the way, we're going to talk about the Haiti earthquake later. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to contact us. And that's a community issue, or you can write me at ArgusoogRadio. Either one. And we have expertise in that area, and we'll be glad to help guide people. And hopefully we'll be able to even have a document you can download that gives you long range, short range, and cost, and how it's whether it's strategic or tactical, meaning is it long range or short range? Is it in the field? Can you carry it? Can you move it? That kind of thing, portable. And remember, all ham radios today that are made are based on being able to be plugged into a car battery, a 12-volt battery of anything. Actually, it's not really 12-volt even in the cars. It's actually 13-something, okay? But 12-volt will run them. So you can hook them up to batteries. And that changed a while back. And the old 60s models of ham radios is what I want to talk about next. And here's the difference. There's a difference between new radios that are all highly technical with microcircuitry and so forth, and what we call the boat anchors, the transistor-driven with tubes in them. One of the most favorite boat anchors that is out there that still has support groups and user interface and parts and an entire industry still thrives around it is one called the Yazoo, however you want to say it, Y-A-E-S-U, Yazoo 101 series. The 101 was one that was manufactured in the 60s, in the late 60s, and it was exactly the same mentality that car makers had back then. They had something called muscle cars, right? Well, muscle cars, they were faster, bigger, more powerful, and so forth, and they don't exist anymore. Well, during the late 60s, they were also making these radios with a lot more power. So you often can find a radio with 300 watts instead of 100 without having to buy another amplifier. But the amplifiers are very available with the Yazoo. So the Yazoo 101 is also one that you would find attractive for a very unique issue. Lots of the new electronics would be susceptible to an electronic pulse. And it doesn't have to come from a bomb. It doesn't have to come from a nuclear bomb is what I mean. It could come from a solar flare. A solar flare creates that electromagnetic pulse that burns and fries out the circuits in the satellites, and it would burn the circuits out in the brand new ham equipment. Now, there are ways to keep that from happening, but it's risky. You can have an inline lightning arrestor, but they're very expensive, but they're available. The best thing to do is to have two radios. If you can't have but one, get an old one. They still work, and they're less money, and you can still get tubes. And some of them are hybrids. Still, the microcircuitry isn't small. They're wires, all wired into connections on a circuit board, hooked up to resistors and so forth that have part resistors and part tubes, like the Yazoo 101. That's what's attractive about it. And the fact that it had such reliable record. It is actually the Cadillac, so to speak, of some of the older models of radio. Now, we have others, and there's others we can talk about, but that's just one of them. So I'm encouraging people to be thinking about the alternative communications that they need. I'm not talking about using it all the time, but I'm talking about the fact that, guess what? There are groups that have formed and planned and coordinated. They have their communications down. They have their communications worked out, and they have Plan A, they have Plan B, they have Plan C. Families should do the same, and you should do that for you and the people that you care about. So that takes care of some of the communications, and we'll ask Hans to bring us up something here. And a ham radio, like I said, right before he puts up what we're going to hear, I'll tell you, ham radio does not need a license, although